Hey, man.
Hey, you don't get to do that.
I just did it. What are you going to do about it?
It's not how this works.
Okay.
Hey, man.
You don't get to do that.
Have you ever heard of the Doddleston Messages?
The Doddleston Messages?
Yeah. What are you looking at? Why are you looking at me like that?
I don't like the name.
Why don't you like the name?
It feels like it's either going to be aliens or ghosts. The Doddleston Messages. It's the messages thing.
Yeah. Can you not get messages from anything other than aliens and ghosts?
Yeah. Every voicemail I've got is from the past. It's from someone stuck in the past.
What was the voice of the aliens on that one episode?
One episode of what?
Jared Myers. What was it? Bob Lazar?
Oh, the aliens human name. Yeah, well, we've lost all of our listeners so far. Let's just get into the theme song.
I landed in the UK for the first time I get off.
Somebody tell me a poem.
I go to my driver and I'm like, pussycat, pussycat. And he's just like, excuse me?
Baker's man? I don't know. He sits on the couch and he makes him throw it back and forth, right? That's the only way he can measure stuff.
Oh, if an expert wrote this, it would be way better.
Yeah, I have a reservation at Applebee's.
Things I learned last night.
All right. What's the Doddleston?
Don't worry, this isn't an alien thing.
All right, that's great.
It could be.
It's a ghost thing. Hey, speaking of stuff.
Speaking of speaking.
This is literally not related to this at all. That's a funny transition. That's a funny transition to bring up any topic. Did you see that Netflix released their trailer for the 657 Boulevard movie?
Yes, I am excited.
It looks like an actual scary movie.
Yeah, we were not consulted at all on this, and I'm deeply offended.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
So anyway.
It looks good.
So the Doddleston Messages.
The Doddleston Messages. So
is this another way of talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yeah, that's another name for it. This happened in 1985.
Okay.
The home of Ken Webster, his girlfriend Debbie. They encountered some strange.
Ken and Debbie are the most 1980s something names I've ever heard in my life.
Well, here's what's strange about that.
These seem like they're made up.
They live in the UK, and I don't feel like Ken and Debbie are UK names.
You don't feel like Ken, Debbie.
I don't think Debbie's a UK name.
Oh, come on, Debbie.
And
I feel like it is. I feel like it's more a UK name than Debbie. Well, just kidding. I said it in that accent. It feels pretty. It feels pretty rural Missouri.
Yeah. And then also their guest Nick.
And in the UK, they pronounce it Deborah.
Do they really?
Yeah.
I don't believe you.
Like aluminium and Deborah.
Deborah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kenneth. Kendall. No, Nick. Nick is a guest of theirs. We'll pronounce it without a K.
Okay. So Ken and Debbie are a couple. They're dating. You said dating. Girlfriend, right?
They are obviously sinners.
Oh, they live together?
They live together.
Oh. I don't even know if we can talk about them.
So it's 1985 in the UK in a town called Doddleston,
okay.
Which is a tiny town. So
the town is Doddleston.
Yeah, the town's called Doddleston. It's a very, very small town. Closest
the only people who live there are Ken and Debbie.
And their visiting guest, Nick.
And their friend. Well, we don't even call them friend. Visiting guests? That sounds like they're Airbnb-ing.
I'm not even kidding when I say today, 30 years later, if you look at the town on the map, there is one intersection. And the intersection isn't even an intersection. It's a intersection.
Driveway.
It's
to their house.
Their one house. Yeah. So there's nothing there except like a bunch of Catholic churches.
Okay.
And a dog training facility.
How much is the population, does it say? And a dog training facility? Yeah, we got to do something about these loose dogs.
Yeah. It was a misnomer. It was Doddleston, but whoever wrote it down thought they said Doddleston. Doggerland. Let me see. The population as of the 2011 census was 715.
Okay, it's pretty small.
So yeah, small town. UK.
So
I don't know what rural
Ken
UK is like.
and Debbie chilling at their house in Doddleston.
Yeah.
Nick is visiting.
He had just spent 3 months in Africa. They work at a nearby university a couple towns over, and Ken is like a theater teacher.
Sure.
I don't know what Debbie does. Nick is like a history teacher. That's why he was in Africa.
Okay.
And so he's staying with them in their basement. They had just moved into this new 18th century brick cottage, which is interesting. It's like, that's something I've never really thought about, is like fixer-uppers in the UK compared to fixer-uppers here.
Yeah. Fixer-uppers in the UK are like castles.
Yeah, they're like 700 years old.
Yeah, for real though.
So he's got this ancient house that he moved into. And when they moved in, it began... The way this begins feels like a ghost story.
Great.
But it doesn't...
It began... I don't know like that way it starts.
The way this begins feels like a ghost story.
Was like blood on the walls? Freaking...
And it said, this is a ghost story.
The Doddleston Messages says, once upon a time. And you're like, oh, wow, okay. Well, I'm
there
getting
was a
murdered
wall,
here.
and 12 friends dug through the wall. So some strange things started happening. For example, they noticed that in their kitchen, there were these footprints that went up the wall. And the feet had 6 toes.
No, stop.
And they were like, this is weird. And so
Did they really notice there was feet that went up the walls?
Yeah, so they painted over it. And
Did it actually have 6 toes?
Yeah.
Stop. I thought you were joking.
No, this is serious. And so they painted over it.
They just painted over it, and they're like, it's a fixer-upper. What are you going to do?
They painted over it. And then the next day, the feet print were back, and this time they had debris from the floor in them, so they knew it was like fresh, which I don't know how dirty their floor is and what kind of debris they had where they could clearly identify that's floor debris.
Oh, yeah. And that's our debris, too. That's like us. Dude, and it started a whole like, Debbie, get in here. Sorry. Debbie, get in here. Look at these feet prints. And look, you told me the floor was clean. But I can tell.
Yeah.
That's yesterday's debris.
Yeah, that's some Debbie debris.
That's some Debbie debris. Okay.
So the feet prints.
What, did he go up to it and he just did like a hunter? Like went up to it, smelled.
Yeah, that's ours.
This is fresh.
I don't know, but Ken is a very serious person, and all his friends are like, he's a serious guy, which is pretty. This happens every time one of these things happens.
Yeah, all their friends are just like, yeah, he's
so serious.
He wouldn't make it up.
Yeah, he's honestly so serious.
He wouldn't make anything up. He's so serious.
He's the most serious person. Honestly, I've never heard him pretend in my life.
I would love for him to lie. One time we took him to a concert, right, for free. And later that night, he said, even if I paid for a ticket, I would never go back to that. And we're like, that guy's super serious.
But yeah, he never lies. He never plays pretend. He just goes
pretend.
He just does theater for a living and is super serious.
He does theater for a living. You're telling me this guy
he's
does
the theater teacher.
Theater is playing pretend. I hate that you're just like, he never plays pretend.
He never plays pretend.
He just goes to his job where he plays pretend. I think about that a lot. You know what I think about a lot?
What?
Is how much we pay actors to make believe.
Yeah. And we pay them a lot.
We give them a lot of money.
Yeah.
And we go, why don't you just play?
Pretend so I don't have to.
Yeah.
Because I can't pretend.
But pretend well enough
that I can't tell. That I think it's real.
There's a lot of people who are making fun of Harry Styles in this new movie. And
I haven't seen it.
You're watching it and you're like, do you think that someone's going to act so well that you're like, that's not Harry Styles? Anyway, I don't know. I had a commentary on these feet thing though. So 6 toes.
6 toes. Yeah.
Walking up the wall.
Yes.
Fresh debris.
Could
not be that it was painted over poorly. This is definitely fresh.
It's fresh debris. Yeah. So it's a layer above is the point with the fresh debris.
He says so. Same spot.
Yeah. Same place. Yeah.
Same exact spots.
Not same exact spots.
Okay. See, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah. So different
set of tracks.
Area, but new tracks. New tracks. But Ken, he was also a musician. He had some musician friends who liked to play pranks on each other. So he just assumed, my friends are playing a goof. And so
that's what they say in the UK.
Yeah, so he painted
playing
over
a goof.
So he painted over it. and just went about his life. Another strange thing started to happen where things in his kitchen, he would walk in there and they would be stacked up that he didn't stack up. So pots and pans, his cat food, just different stuff got stacked in the middle of his kitchen, which is very strange.
I do like that ghosts do that kind of stuff. They just tidy up.
This is so messy.
Yeah, the ghost is like, you live like a pig.
Let me clean up after you. It just stacks up all your pots.
Look how dirty my feet are because you live like a pig.
And just slamming his feet on the wall.
Okay. So stacks as in like, how big of stacks? I don't know.
Like
plates on top of plates, whatever.
Yeah, it just stacks up the plates after they washed them or something. I don't know. Just stacking stuff up.
Okay.
And then the interesting thing begins.
Got it.
So Ken, all to this point, Ken's just like, whatever. I've got musician friends.
I got too much stuff to do. There's feet print on the walls and stacks of stuff in my kitchen, and I have to go to work. My very serious job. So this is what happened next.
So this is 1985.
Yeah.
Right. And so the university he works at just got a brand new BBC microcomputer.
Okay.
And so the deal was, hey, teachers, since you're going to be teaching some student stuff.
Teacher.
You can
learn this new computer.
Yeah. You can rent our BBC micros, take them home and learn how to use it.
Oh.
And so he was like, yeah, I'll rent out a BBC micro. He takes it. It's on his kitchen table. And then this is a hardy computer. These are big computers. It's not an easy task.
Opens it up. Solitaire. Loves stacking.
Comes back in. A bunch of BBC micros stacked end over end, covered in footprints. And so he has this BBC micro in there.
Okay.
And on micro, there's a program called Edward, which was Microsoft Word.
Sure.
But for some reason they named it
Edward.
A real
That's
name.
Funny.
It is funny. But it wasn't Edward. It was Edward.
Oh, well,
like
then
a normal.
that's dumb.
I don't think they knew it was a pun.
Yeah, you don't think they knew they could do that?
Yeah, I think it was
like, what do you want to name it? You know what happened? This is exactly what happened. Someone went, Edward. And they were like, oh, that's brilliant. And the person who said it definitely was like, Edward. And then the person was like, yeah, and wrote down Edward. Or the person was like,
and locked it in.
Okay, I guess.
Edward. That's an interesting. And then they
rolled it out.
They user tested it, and everybody liked
still
Edward.
Doesn't get it.
Yeah, I don't know why we call it
Edward. To this day, he's like, yeah, he just wanted to name an Edward.
Yeah, they just liked Edward.
Yeah.
And so they had this program Edward, and he had been typing in some school stuff in it. Closed it off, saved it, whatever. And then they went to the pub. Him and Debbie and Nick, and they go to the pub. And they come back, they see this green glow coming from the kitchen, and the computer was on with a message. And let me read this message to you.
Oh, it's on the computer.
Yeah, it's on the computer. So the computer's on, and which he didn't leave on. He turned off before he left. The computer's on with this message. The message says,
hello, my name is Edward.
They call me Edward. I'm Edward. They trapped me in this thing.
Be sure to drink your Ovaltine. You know I'm going to bring it up.
It says, true are the nightmares of a person that fears.
Shut up.
Safe are the bodies of the silent world. Turn, pretty flowers, turn towards the sun, for you shall grow and sow. But the flower reaches too high and withers in the burning light. Get your bricks. Pussycat, pussycat went to London to seek fame and fortune. Faith must be lost, for this shall be your redeemer. And so...
I don't know why the two pussycats got me. But it's just like, the flower will wither in the sun's light. Pussycat, pussycat. And I was like, that's a hard turn.
And so...
is that a known poem? Is that a...
Pussycat, pussycat that phraseology is like a common, like, British, like, nursery rhyme trope. The way it's used, like, the rest of this isn't...
original.
Yeah, but...
okay.
There are a lot of, like... It's kind of like... we have roses are red, violets are blue.
Sure.
That'll be a phrase in a lot of poetry out there in the UK. I think. I've never been. So I landed in the UK for the first time I get off.
Like, somebody tell me a poem.
I go to my driver and I'm like, pussycat, pussycat. And he's just like, excuse
like
me?
Baker's Man? I don't know. Like, what did you
just say? Oh, nothing.
Nothing.
I heard the ukes like that.
Stop. Okay, so
Ken was like, "Oh, that's weird. Must be a glitch.
Let me turn this off."
Yeah, he turns it off.
Let me paint over it.
Well, buddy, looks like we got to paint the computer.
Well, yeah, can't have that on here.
So he's like, whatever. He returns it to the school.
Okay.
A few days later, he rents another one.
Wasn't like, hey guys, that was weird.
No, because he doesn't think anything of it. He's a serious guy.
Yeah. Okay.
And so a few days later, he rents another one. We're not sure if it's the same one or just another one from the school, but he rents another computer.
Okay.
Puts it back on his kitchen table, does some work on it for a while, shuts it off, goes to the pub, comes back to another message. And the message this time says, "I write on behalf of many. What strange words you speak. You are a worthy, good man who has a fanciful woman, and you live in a house who dwell in my home with lights which the devil maketh, and it was a great crime to have stolen my house. LW."
What?
So Ken's like, okay, that's strange.
That's a little more. He goes, "This might be serious."
This might be serious. Get the paint.
Okay, because then he's like, they're getting a little bit of details. So like, you are a worthy, good man of what?
Yeah.
And you have a fancy woman.
Yeah.
I would know immediately that wasn't about us. I'd be like, oh, okay. I'm not a worthy, good man. And she ain't fancy.
So he takes the school back to whatever. He like prints out the message and takes it back to his colleagues at work. He's like, "Guys, look at this. Whatever."
He's like, "Which one of you did this?"
"Yeah, you guys are funny."
No,
and everyone's like,
he went, "Which one of you did this?" You guys
"I'm a very serious man."
You think you're funny. I do not.
And so they,
no one at the school could explain it either. They're like, "Oh, I don't know."
yeah, everyone at the school thought it was just kind of a joke, and they're like, "Oh, it's funny, whatever. Like, you got some funny friends that are pranking you, or whatever." You know, like most people do. They just kind of make fun of the things that you think are really serious in life. You know?
Yeah.
Has that ever happened to you?
No. I'm the bully in my friend groups.
So nobody has an answer for it. Whatever, go on. He rents another one, goes home, and then he gets one where he addresses him by name. And so this letter says Ken, Deb, Nick, and then here, let's see. I have seen many alterations. Lastly, charge house and thou home. 'Tis a fitting place with lights, and then he goes back to the devil things. He says, and there's costly things that only my friend Edmund Gray can afford, or the king himself. Yeah. So again, kind of going back to how weird the house is.
But he mentions them by name?
Yeah, mentions them by name. That. Burn the computer.
Easy.
Burn the whole house? Or burn the computer? Burn the whole house.
Burn the house with the computer inside. And then watch it type. Please, help. The devil gloweth, shineth around me.
So he takes it. He takes it back. Prints this message off again. Takes it back to the school, and it catches the attention of Peter Trinder, who was a like English professor.
Do we know who Edmund Gray is? Are we getting that?
Yeah. So
okay,
well, no, but yes.
But
yes.
Peter will address that for us.
So yeah, they take it to Peter Trinder, who is a English professor with a specialty in medieval
weird computer messages.
Computer English. Weird computer English professor 101. So Peter.
What's up? That's what I'm just thinking. Like, what if that was behind your name? You know, Dr. Jaron Myers, WCEP.
Weird English professor. Okay.
No, it's a weird computer English professor.
Oh yeah,
he's not
right.
WEP.
He's WECP.
So
Peter looks
his
at
specialty in medieval
English, and so Peter looks at it and he says, "This is probably from 1643."
Yeah, but also every Baptist preacher speaks King James. Would you take it to a...
Yeah, this is just one of the local churches.
A
The
local
pastor's
guy.
coming
A
in,
local man.
Local, yeah, Florida man. So Peter Trinder is like, oh, I'm convinced that this is from the 16th century. You're getting messages from the 16th century somehow. And so Peter gets like obsessed with this. Ken is like, this is weird. But Peter's like, I need to come over to your house and send messages to this dude.
Peter's like, actually, if you want to move out, I want to live there.
Yeah, he's like, can I move in?
Yeah. This is my wife's grandfather.
He walks through the house and he's like, you know what would look great right here? A stack of pans.
And the computer goes... He's just communicating with the computer. Like, what the heck?
So what they do is they start writing these messages...
You got to figure out how to communicate back.
Yeah, so they write a message in the computer and then they go to the pub, and when they come back, the computer has a response answering their questions.
They're like, yeah, you know how it works? We have to get blackout drunk.
We only hear from the computer if we're blitzed.
Then let's say you go to Applebee's, right? You roll to Applebee's and the server's like, how many in your party tonight? Well, there's 4 of us. We think. There might be another one.
There might be a 5th.
But he doesn't
Maybe
need
just
a seat,
set another chair.
You know? And she's like, okay, well, you guys seem like you're excited. You guys celebrating anything tonight? Well, we're out for a reason.
We're here for a reason.
Yeah, we're waiting to hear from our 1,600 ghosts at the house. She's like, okay, well, appetizers are half off. And like...
She's there serving your dessert, your little volcano brownie thing. And then you guys are all like, oh, there he is. The computer's just floating through the front door.
And the server's just...
The server starts walking up the wall, spouts a 6th toe. She turns to her manager. She says, there's so much debris on the floor.
There is so much debris here. Deborah.
That's how she got her name. She wasn't Debbie before. She's like, your new name is Debris. And she's like, Debbie?
Got it. Yeah. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. If you like this podcast, you want more of it, please leave a review. That's super helpful to let others know who are searching for a podcast. And if you're new around here, we've been doing this for several years, and there's plenty of episodes to check out. One of my personal favorites is Agent Garbo. It was a guy who went to the government during World War II and was like, hey, let me be a double agent. And they were like, no. And then he was like, well, I'm gonna. And so he kind of went off on his own, did the thing. And it's also got some crazy details about World War II, about how the U.S. used inflatable tanks to trick Germany, all kinds of fun stuff. But if you want to go check that out, you can. But thank you so much for listening to this podcast. So, yeah, you got to go to the pub, got to come back.
They go to the pub, they come back, and he's answering these questions.
He's answering questions.
Yeah, he's answering questions. So they're asking him about the town, where he lives, what he does for a living.
Is there more than one intersection in your time?
Yeah, how many intersections do you guys have? And so they end up finding out that he says that he lives in a red brick house, a red stone house, but the house isn't a red stone house, and so like that's peculiar. He works at a local university, which did exist
in the 1600s.
Yeah, I guess at the time maybe it was a college. I don't know. It just didn't get the university status yet.
Yeah, it was a tech school.
It was a community college.
Yeah, we're training.
It didn't reach the level yet, but eventually
we're training cart builders here. It's great.
That was another thing. They left a picture of a Porsche on the computer, and he said that.
And he said, "Nice car."
He says, "'Twas strange cart. Won't work well without horses," or something like that.
No, that seems dumb. Won't. Oh no, he's taking over. Hello, Timothy.
Okay. So
Timothy.
So they're getting all these answers about what's going on in LW's world.
Sure. This has got to be a hack.
Things don't... Well, here's what's strange, is this is before the internet.
There was no way to connect it.
There were networks, but you would have to plug into a network, and most of those networks were local networks. So there likely was a network on the university campus that they could plug into while they're on campus, but off campus, they couldn't plug into.
Do we think that they're going to the pub and someone's sneaking into the house?
There's a few theories.
Okay. We'll get there later.
We can get to these. Yeah. There's quite a few theories. But so they start comparing a lot of the things that he's saying, and they do realize some of it's not lining up. The time in which he says he lives doesn't line up with like that university he says he works at didn't get founded for another 100 years.
Yeah.
And the king that he says that he's under wasn't the king.
So it's getting less believable is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an explanation though. Don't worry.
I mean, we were fully on. We're talking to a guy from the 1600s until
he started answering some questions.
I don't know. Something's like a couple of years off there.
Eventually, LW starts asking them questions about their time, trying to get explanations about things. So they start playing along, telling them about the 80s. They said Miami's really hot right now. We've never been, but it's super cool. All the neon and stuff, dope.
Yeah.
And so he's learning all about the 80s, and then he replies after they tell him all about the 80s, and he says, "Oh, that's strange. I thought you were also from 2109, like your friend who brought the box of lights. Do you pray?"
Okay.
If someone asks you, "Do you pray?" you need to run.
Yeah, for sure. I also do miss the times when text messages had signatures, and I would 100% now make "Do you pray" my signature. You know? Every text. Do you remember that? Why did text messages have signatures for a while?
I don't know. It was so absurd because you had such a limited amount of characters at the time too.
And then at the end,
and then you used up 15 of them.
Because it was like the asterisk little curly sign thing. Man.
So this is where things get really weird.
Yeah. Just past feet on the wall, past stacked up things, past weird glowing thing, past a message that says 2109, do you pray? Tell me where it gets weird, Tim.
So LW, we found out somewhere along the line that LW's real name was Lucas, or first name was Lucas. That was what LW stands for.
Okay.
Lucas Wright, the race car driver.
Will we be alive in 2109? Probably not. Maybe.
No. I mean...
You don't think so?
Very doubtful. You'd have to be, what would that make you, 113?
115?
Yeah, that's old.
Yeah. But I'm saying like, dude, medicine.
I mean, there's a chance like in the 60s or 70s, something crazy happens.
That's what I'm saying.
I think we're most likely dying in the 60s or 70s. I'm most likely dying in the 40s.
In the 60s or 70s?
Yeah, that would make us, well, I guess no. Yeah, probably more like
I was going to say, were you planning on going to 65?
I mean, yeah, I'll probably die in the 60s.
No, you're not going to make it that far. I'm saying, yeah, you're going to die next year, dude. I'm saying...
Yeah, but maybe by the 70s or 80s, something interesting will
happen.
What
if we tried to interview, if he does exist in 2109?
We do a follow-up episode?
Well, and we could probably find him a few years younger.
Yeah, he probably would be, a little tyke.
And we'll be like, for our Patreon supporters. And he's like, what is Patreon? And we're like, it's a website.
What makes you think 2109 is British?
And he goes... Because he lives in that weird house.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
He's in.
Do you think British accents will still be around?
I don't know. I'm saying we'll be old. We'll be like, Patreon's a website. He'll go, what's a website? You know, it'll be a whole disaster.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So 2109. This is where things get weird because all of a sudden Lucas is like, oh, well, yeah, there's another guy I've been talking to then who's been telling me all about 2109. And things are crazy then, man.
So no, Lucas is not in 2109.
Lucas is in like the 16th century.
Oh, yeah. I thought he was saying that he was in 2109.
So Lucas explains this whole thing of what's going on to him. He says that what happened was one night he was in his little cottage, just, I don't know, whatever people do in the medieval times. Just, cutting up some guy's arms that he got in a fight with or something like that. I don't know.
Planting some seeds.
Yeah, I don't know. And then he said that a glow came from his hearth, and a man walked out of it and told him to not be afraid and to keep the faith, and said that when the light glows, speak into it. And so I guess that he has like a text-to-speech capability where he can now speak into this computer.
It just pops out and goes, doo-doo. And it's the little orb from Siri.
It's and it's just floating in his living room.
And he goes, do you pray? Opening Subway app. No, do you pray?
There is a Subway 22 kilometers and 436 years from here. Would you like directions?
I hate this. Okay, so he's speaking to a glowing orb.
He's speaking to some orb.
I wonder what he hears back.
Well, he says that he can see the messages on the orb. It's almost like what's happening is he sees the computer, is what he's trying to say. Is he sees the computer and he can read it, and then when he speaks, it types the messages. He's got text-to-speech ability. So I don't know, whatever. Also, they're renovating this old house, and they found during some part of the project that there was a foundation underneath the building that wasn't the foundation. So there was a building that was there before, and this was a red brick or redstone foundation. So evidence that there was probably another building on the site in the past, which explains why the guy was like, "What you did to my house is strange, but kind of nice. I like it. What's the Zillow property value?" So now there's been a series of tens or dozens of messages at this point back and forth between LW and Ken and the crew. And so Ken and Peter,
got to figure out, then they want to communicate through Lucas to 2109.
Well, Ken and Peter say, "Hey, let's just send a message to 2109. So they did. So they said, "Hey, 2109, what's up?"
You up? Question mark.
And so they get a message back.
Stop.
Hold on.
Are you gonna read it? What are you gonna do? You're gonna look at it and go.
So it says that they say try to understand, or we're sorry that we cannot give you all the questions that you have asked. Here's our options. One,
speak to representative. Like they're getting an automated response.
They say, well, we can tell you everything in a way that you will understand. But if we do, it will cause what is not meant to be to happen, which is strange. And then they said, or two, you can try to understand that you three have a purpose that shall in your lifetime change the face of history. We, 2109, must not affect your thoughts directly, but give you some sort of guidance that will allow room for your own destiny. All we can say is that we are all a part of the same God, whatever he is, is.
Space. Do you pray?
Do you pray?
Okay. Are they printing out these messages like we have them?
I assume they printed them out.
Okay.
We have them.
I assume they made them up, but go ahead. Yeah.
So at this point, Ken and Peter feel like they're a little out of their depth. They say this is. Peter's like, I know a lot about the middle.
Who's the first person if you're talking to somebody from the past and from the future?
Well, you have the past guy. So now you need to think about that. Probably George Lucas. I don't know. You need someone who knows about stuff that hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
God, I don't know.
You got to put signs up that says, "Have you been to the future?
Have you seen the future?" So they hire some paranormal experts, the Society for Psychical Research, to come do some tests. And so what they set up is a series of tests because they were convinced when they came in the house, they were like, "This is just you guys. Like, you're just writing all these letters to yourself." They
go, "Yeah, no, we figured it out pretty easy. It's you.
Just you. You're the ones doing it." So they started doing these experiments, basically asking a bunch of questions to 2109 and separating Ken and Debbie from the home. They kicked him out for a little bit and
like, go to the pub.
Yeah, go to the pub. They're
go
like,
on, get.
Go on, get. You don't have to ask us twice. We'll go. So they go to Applebee's and they hang out for a while the investigators start asking all these questions at 2109. And 2109 basically says, your investigations are putting a hamper in our research. I
can tell this isn't Ken and Debbie.
Yeah, we need you
out. Give it back to Ken and Debbie.
Give the phone back to Ken and Debbie.
Do it.
Who else is on the line?
Am I on speakerphone right now?
Yeah.
Am I on speaker orb right now?
And so they basically they call out the investigators by name and they tell them, "Get out of here." But then they did mention one of them, and they said, but we kind of like you. You can stick around if you want. And so the investigators, after looking at this, they said,
would you want to be chosen by the ghost or not? Like, where it's kind of like,
we kind of like you.
Yeah, but except for Tim. I think that makes me want to be the first one out of here.
I think I got somewhere. Got another hunt I got to go to.
Yeah, I have a reservation at Applebee's for party of 86. So
yeah, so the investigators, they are able to do enough investigation to say, I don't think this is Ken and Debbie that are doing this, because they were getting responses back. This is now a third party that's like, yeah, we got the responses back. We don't think it was Ken and Debbie, but we also don't want to be a part of this anymore. So they just left. They were done.
I'm saying, if I hire paranormal activity people that come to my house and they go, yeah, that was pretty spooky, and then they leave, bro, that's like if a termite inspector came to your house and was like, yeah, I saw the big one. I looked in his eyes and I saw my future and I got to go home.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
That's not good.
So they come back from the pub and they're like, well, I guess we don't have our investigators anymore, to a message from 2109. And 2109 is like, hey, those guys you hired are bozos. We recommend you hire Gary Rowe, who is a very learned...
We looked up some Yelp reviews of local...
investigators.
It took some time. We had to use the Wayback Machine to find out what Yelp looked like back then. Because now it's very different.
Yeah.
Now, when you're at a restaurant, it just tracks how you're feeling.
Yeah, and it just puts the review
and it just uploads that because you agreed to that when you signed up 40 years ago. But you didn't know that.
But you had no idea. Yeah.
And now every time you walk in public, it's measuring how you're experiencing
how much you
things.
like that McDonald's.
It's pretty unfortunate. Yeah. So... we can't get out of it.
All your thoughts just become comments in there.
Yeah.
Service was great. Service was bad.
Ugh.
Should I leave a tip? Nah.
Did I used to date this waitress?
Man, these Yelp reviews are getting weird.
These are getting weirder and weirder.
So 2109 is like Gary Rowe. He's this ufologist. And they put in parentheses, they're like, we know you don't like the word. And they were like,
what?
A ufologist. They study UFOs. And they're like, he's very intelligent. We want to speak with him. Get him out here.
Okay.
And so they find him. They hire him. And he comes out.
He goes, so the computer's flying. No. Okay, but I do flying things. Yeah, but the computer's stationary. He's like, so it's not flying.
Yeah, so, and you know what it is.
And so he sits on the couch and he makes him throw it back and forth, right? That's the only way he can measure stuff. Because he goes...
He walks in the house, he's like, hey, you guys got a baseball mitt?
Yeah, he's like, I did this with my counselor. That's a good joke.
So this guy comes out, and he sends a couple of messages.
From where?
I don't know.
Okay.
So he comes to Doddleston. He sends a couple messages.
And then you got to tell this guy, like, hey, the computer mentioned you by name.
Yeah. And so what's happening is Ken is relaying these messages back and forth between Gary and 2109. I don't know why, but Ken is sending the messages in the computer and telling Gary what he said. And then eventually...
and Gary's just sitting right there?
Gary's just like, interesting.
Yeah, Gary's like, read it to me. Yeah. I'm a ufologist, but I can't read.
I'm a ufologist, not a reader, okay? I can only be an expert in one thing.
Yeah, instead of learning English, I learned the language of the gods. You're like, whatever that means.
And so what happens is there's some messages where then Gary's like, oh, you can't be a part of this. And then he kicks him out.
He goes, someone else read this to me.
Go to Applebee's and bring me one of the waitresses.
Will you go to that place? I saw it coming in. It's the sign says
something about a neighborhood.
Oko Shupati or something like that. I don't know how to read. So you can go there.
Oko Shupati. I don't know. There's
you guys going to Schwabby's after this? Everyone's after youth group. Obese?
And nobody corrects it.
Everyone's just like, we know what that means.
We'll go to Schwabby's.
Yeah, someone has to. He has to have the menu with the pictures too. He's played it off so well. He goes, I want that. That looks really good.
Yeah, can you give me the Oprah doobie? And the waitress is like, excuse me. One of the guys leans over and it's like, yeah, he wants the wings medium.
He wants medium spicy wings. Yeah, please.
And some mozzarella sticks.
Please, thank you. Yeah. He goes, all right, thanks. He read her name tag.
I love that he can say like 8 words. He's got a few words he's got, but then there's these random things.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
No, he can speak English. He just can't read it.
Oh, yeah. So he read her name tag.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like,
yeah.
That's what that said.
And she was like, all right. He tips really well though because he didn't know numbers either.
Yeah, he has no idea what he's giving.
He's like, does this cover it? And it's like $400.
He gets a call for the bank, and the bank's like, sir, did you just mean to charge $4 million to Applebee's?
He's like, whatever that means.
And he's like, oh, you mean
he's like, whatever that means. And they're like, would you speak closer to the phone?
Someone throw this phone by my face so I can talk to it.
Whatever that means. Jeez.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
So this guy's sitting in the living room while the computer
like, you
flies
can't be part of this.
He does. Yeah. He's like, you can't be part of this. So he has some messages back and forth with 2109.
Okay.
That
he doesn't tell us the contents of?
Yeah, that he keeps hidden.
Okay.
And so then
here's what you do. This is what this guy's doing. All right. Here's how you rob someone's house. Okay, this is serious. You hack into the computer. You claim that you are from the future,
and the past.
You say you need to reach out to this guy, Jaron Myers, who needs to come to your house and investigate these messages. And then you would then call me, Jerome Myers. And I would come to your house. You'd be like, "Hey, Jerome, I'm a big fan." And then I would sit down. I'd be like, "Whoa, this is getting pretty." You gotta get out of here. You know, I think you should leave.
Yeah.
Like drive. What's the furthest restaurant away?
Yeah.
You should go there.
Go to that restaurant.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna take
and bring me a box truck.
All of your stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. But that's not what happens. He sits in his house for a while, has some back and forth messages with 2109.
Okay.
And then he leaves a message for 2109 open on the computer and leaves. And so Ken and Debbie and Nick, they come home to this message that Gary sent that says, "I'm sorry, I didn't realize what this was all about. I apologize for any missteps that I have taken. I'll allow you to continue what you're doing and check back in when the time comes." And so
I'll be praying.
Yeah, he asks 2109. Also, do you pray?
When the time comes? What the heck?
And then he disappears. Ken and Debbie and Nick, they can't get a hold of him. And he's off the radar for the rest of the story.
Just forever.
Well, he does come back in like the 2000s.
Okay.
But for a long time, this guy just ceased to exist, basically.
Okay.
Hey, thanks again for listening to this episode. If you like our show, make sure you follow us on social at TILLN Podcast or subscribe anywhere where you're listening to right now, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, whatever it is. And if you want more, we do have a Patreon you can support us on. In there, you get all sorts of perks like ad-free episodes, early access to our content, and even a Discord with our hosts and producers. So we'd love for you to check that out. All you got to do is text TILLN to 66866. That's TILLN to 66866. But thanks again for checking us out. So Ken and Debbie are like, well, that was weird. And Nick's like, I think I'm going to move.
Yeah, Nick's like, I don't like living here anymore.
I'm going to go back to Africa, I think. Really anywhere. And so Nick moves out. Debbie actually does move out as well. She goes, they rent a place.
It's got to create a strain on their relationship.
Yeah, so she rents a place, and Ken's like, can I come stay there sometimes? And she's like,
no, the new ghost says you're not allowed. She moves into a new place. She goes, Yeah.
Oh, he knows 2109?
Yeah, he knows 2109. Oh.
Anyone who knows 2109.
2109? Don't get me started on 2109. Is he still talking to Lucas? Those. She's like, what did you call him? You don't even want to know what I just called him. Bleep it, Alex.
So they move out, and then so he tries to contact 2109 again, but 2109's not answering him. So he starts contacting LW again. Come to find out, LW
was in love with Debbie.
Went to jail. So the local sheriff arrested him for witchcraft.
Was he in the stocks? Witchcraft for witchcraft? Yeah, he's talking to an orb, dude. Some of your neighbors saw you talking to an orb. And I don't know why the police officer was Andy Griffith in the freaking 1600s. I can't even whistle today. You know?
Sorry, that was bad.
You know, just showing up, Barney Fife coming out here.
With his bullet.
Yeah. Is this a reference that any of our listeners even get anymore?
I don't know.
Are you old?
Yeah, I'm old.
Are you old?
Here's a joke for the olds.
Well, yeah, so they arrest him for witchcraft?
Yeah, they arrest him for witchcraft, and so he's off the radar for a little bit.
Hey, we heard you're talking to the future.
He comes back. We heard you're talking to the bunch of people from the future. So he comes back from jail, and when he comes back from jail, he's like, hey, I have a confession to make, Ken. My name's not LW, and most of the stuff I was telling you was a lie because I was nervous of getting caught and sent to jail.
But now that I've been caught, yeah.
I need to level with you. My name is Thomas Howarden. I work at this university, not that university, and kind of clears up a bunch of stuff that was wrong from before.
Yeah, but they called him on it being wrong. So then whoever's doing it.
Well, they never called him on it.
Oh, okay.
Because Ken always was like, this is a prank. Someone's somehow sneaking in my house.
None of this makes sense, though. What is it, the 1600s sideways? Why are the feet on the wall?
Yeah, they're sideways.
Okay.
That's the future.
That was the great
sideways. Flip. Yeah. It was when the axis tilted.
It was when gravity messed up.
Yeah. They discovered gravity, and then ever since
Wouldn't
then,
that be wild?
Things changed. Do
you think it would happen gradually or instantly? Probably gradually.
Probably gradually, yeah.
Maybe it's already happening.
Yeah, and we're just tilting to the left. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, that won't happen. So Ken had always kind of been like, "Oh, this is a prank. I'm being pranked. I don't know how."
Now that this is cleared some stuff up.
Pranked. And so he was always, his motivation in talking to it was to try to catch something to where he could figure out who it is.
Yeah.
And he's like, if I could get some details,
this is like us with the same Pick a Jaren account.
Yeah. He's like, if I could get them to slip up and say something that would help me identify him.
He's hoping to catch him in some kind of.
He's hoping to catch him in it.
Sure.
And so he says his name's Thomas Howarden. And so then he goes and looks it up, and this was a real guy who lived and worked at this university.
And was arrested for talking to an orb. That would be in there, though, is what I'm saying, right?
There was a sheriff that he mentioned that was the sheriff at his time. And
But all this is available online,
all of his stuff lined up, yeah. Well, the internet didn't exist yet.
Yeah, but encyclopedias did.
Yeah, so I guess the guy
you're getting pranked by a nerd.
This guy comes in with like a bunch of encyclopedias. He kicks open the door, and then he's like, "Oh, this is awkward."
You're supposed to be at Applebee's.
I thought it was B-Day.
I thought it was. Okay.
So, I don't know. Everything starts to line up and actually make sense now of it being possible. And so they started communicating, and then it kind of ends with LW and his communication breaks off, or I guess Thomas is his real name. So Thomas and Ken's communication breaks off. They can't get a hold of each other. And then 2109 jumps back in and says, "Thank you for your cooperation. You've been a huge help in all of this. I promise all this will make sense within your lifetime. When it does,
please reach out and give us a review.
When it does, please pray." And they said, by the way, Thomas talked about how he said he wants to record everything that happened in a book. And he says that, and 2109 says he lived for, it kind of gives a, you know, at the end of a movie when it's like the black screen with the white text that gives you the rest of the story.
He lived and then he died with a vicious attack.
And so they give the rest of the information kind of just like he lived out the rest of his life. He retired. He wrote his book. and he hid it on campus for you to find. And
this is a scavenger hunt now.
And so he died. He hid it on campus with a message that only you would understand in the beginning, and then the outline of the story of everything that happened. And they said that one day we trust you'll find it. And then that was the end of it. No one could get a hold of them anymore, and nothing ever happened again.
This is what rich people pay for. Rich people pay for like private escape room kind of things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And so Ken was like, well, that was fun. And so he turns in the computer and then goes on with his life. And Debbie's like, shouldn't we tell somebody about this?
He goes, tell somebody about what?
Who would we tell? He can't remember any of it.
She goes, the computer thing. And he goes, who are you? And she's like, Ken? And he's like, my name is Thomas? Oh. So he never looked for the book?
As far as we know. So here's what happened after this. Nothing for a while. And then 4 years later, a book comes out called The Vertical Plane, written by Ken.
Twilight.
Called The Vertical Plane, where Ken tells this story in the book, outlines everything that happened, references all the different people that were involved in the story.
What if Ken was talking to somebody in like 2089 and 2109 was talking to 2089 and they were like, one day Ken's going to write a book.
This is Ken's book. Ken is LW.
Yeah, to them.
And 2109 mixed up the message.
No, like 2109, there was a Thomas who wrote a book, right? But 2109 told someone else that Ken was going to write a book.
Yeah, and then Ken's book is.
And then Ken writes a book.
Yeah, and then someone else is going to in 2089
never find it.
Yeah, well, yeah, nobody's found Thomas's book. A bunch of people have found Ken's book and read it. That's why we know this story. The only other press that they did was about 7 years after he released the book. The book sold a few thousand copies, nothing crazy, pretty humble.
Yeah.
7 or 8 years later, he does an interview on like BBC's 60 Minutes version of the show.
Okay.
And in that, like him and Debbie, they don't show their faces. They face the other way and disguise their voices and stuff like that.
Cool.
But like BBC did.
But like, I was going to say, not there. Yeah. They're sitting there going, anyway, we
rented the BBC microcomputer.
And the interviewer's just sitting there like,
You guys didn't tell me they were going to talk like this.
And and okay. So me and Debbie broke up.
And they vouched for the whole thing. Obviously. They asked them some questions because they brought Peter on, and Peter was like, yeah, this thing's super legit. It's crazy. It's it's exactly what you would think someone from the 16th century would write like. And so the BBC, what they did is they got a second opinion. They found another linguist, and she said, yeah, this is way off. Not even close to what someone from the 16th century would write like.
Sure.
And she says, and so they asked her, and it's really funny in the interview. They're like, so do you think that this was a language expert from the 16th century who wrote this to try to look like that's what was going on as a hoax? And she said,
of course not.
She said, oh, if an expert wrote this, it would be way better.
Okay.
And so they asked Ken about it in Ken's interview about that, what she said. And he says, I mean, a pretty stereotypical response. He's like, well, if you're an academic and your career bets on how good you are at understanding these things, you're going to work to disprove the wacky theory and try to go with the logical one. So that's his stance on it. But other than that, Ken has done no interviews. He doesn't have social media. Debbie does, and she's pretty active on social media, but she doesn't
Yeah.
I mean, she brings this stuff up occasionally.
She's posts about her dogs.
Yeah, she's like, check out our cat.
The cat has a human face.
Pay no attention to the stack of pans behind the cat in the floating orb.
The dog is standing on the wall behind her, and she's just like, gosh, she's like, I can't believe it's football season already, you know?
They just live in this wild fun house, and she's posting regular suburban mom crap on her social.
For sale, $50 OBO. Bought these flower pots last spring, didn't get around to doing them. And in the background, dude, there's just like a monster coming out of her sink. We're going to Photoshop some of these for sure, dude.
And so people reach out to her, and she like answers questions, but like doesn't like it just answers questions. But neither of them have done interviews, and so they wrote the book, but they barely, in terms of trying to profit off this, they really haven't. Like they've done the interview,
which makes
they've
it
done
more
the
believable.
book. Yeah.
Which
Gary,
I want to put on record right now that whenever this podcast starts to decline, you know, like, which it will probably soon. But when it starts to go down, we're going to have to make up like a alien thing, and then we're going to profit off of it for sure.
We're going to profit for sure.
Yeah. And we're really trusting that people aren't going to come back and listen to the podcast.
To this episode.
Yeah.
We'll scrub this one. So the interesting thing is, after that interview, it was the early 2000s, Gary resurfaces. And Gary, on his website, starts talking about this story. Mm-hmm. And he says that he 100% believes it. And he goes as far as to say he believes that that book is going to be found, that Thomas wrote. And he says that when that book is found, both that book and the Vertical Plane, Ken's book, are going to be, their ISBNs are going to be changed to be under the category of history. And it's going to alter the world. And so he's very convinced of it.
Yeah.
But he won't tell what his conversation was. He's like, I've been instructed not to talk about that. But he goes,
I'm very excited for someone to find the book. I'm also very excited for someone to teach me how to read the books. I've been practicing.
That's why he's so amazed by what they said, because he just guessed. Like 2109 was like, hey, could you send Ken back?
Yeah.
And he thinks they told him the secrets to the universe.
Smashing the keyboard. Yeah, I don't really want to reveal what I said. He's too prideful to admit that he couldn't read what they said. He's like, you guys got to go. And then he sits down. Interesting.
So this is the Doddleston Messages. There's a few theories of what's going on here.
Yeah.
One, the easy one
they made it up. They made it up. That's the easy one.
The easy one is that there is an interdimensional thing going on here.
Okay.
Between some people from the year 2109.
That's the easy theory.
Some people from the 1980s and some dude from the 1600s. That's the easy possible explanation here. So we can check that off as a might be true. Okay. The other one, I think you're right. They could have made it up. Ken and Debbie could have made this up. It's less likely that Ken and Debbie made it up, more likely that someone they know made it up. Whether it was Peter or
was
another
just doing
bar
it to
friend,
them, and they were like,
and was messing with them. One thing about hoaxes like this that are interesting to me that people always bring up is like the motivation. Because they say either someone wants to profit off of it,
sure,
or like they want the notoriety, they want to get famous off of it. There has to be a motivation. And to that, I say, no, I would just do this to someone because it's funny. Like the idea of being able to have, because at the end of this, there were hundreds of messages back and forth. To be able to sustain a game like this with somebody for that long, it would be the light of my life. And I just want the world to understand.
To be able to convince someone that their reality is something completely different would just bring me so much joy. To be able to fake a friendship and release hundreds of podcast episodes with somebody and at the end reveal that it was all a lie would really
Brings a tear to my eye.
Would I do it for the profit? Will I make some money? Sure.
Maybe. Who knows?
You know?
Yeah. But it's not about the money we make. It's about the friends we deceive along the way. No, okay. I'm just saying that's peak humor to trick someone.
But what about the feet prints on the wall? None of that makes sense.
Yeah, so there's some things about this that are tough because for this long, even the best hoaxer, you would expect some cracks to start to form.
Sure.
Or even just honestly, I don't, maybe you could do it. I would get 3 messages in and then they'd describe it to me at the lunchroom and I would die laughing. Yeah. I could not hold this live for that long.
Cool.
I could not make it. Maybe someone like you could.
There is a new person that works downstairs, by the way, in Nick's office.
Let's get him.
Yeah. I already got him once.
Nice.
Yeah, I walked in and he and Nick in there and Nick was like, yeah, this is, what's his name? Luke? This is Luke. And I went, who? It was good.
Sweet. Well, I'll get here early tomorrow. I'll just nail my feet to the ceiling.
He's going to come in, your blood rushed to your head. You've passed out.
Feet
because you've set the joke up way too early.
He calls the police.
Dude, that's how one of us is going to die that way.
And I'm like, got him.
Who?
They're like, Luke found you. Who?
From the 1600s?
I say, I don't see that guy. And they rush me to the hospital.
They go, he can't see people.
I don't see people.
The doctor comes in. Where? You don't know when to stop with the bit. You don't know when to cut it out. The doctor comes in.
Do you see that guy?
He's talking to you and you go, yeah, I hear your voice. Jeez.
Do you pray?
This is so dumb. All right. Is that it then?
Oh no, we got more theories.
Great.
So it's could be a hoax.
Sure.
Could be a hoax. Who knows? Another theory is that there is someone in the school who, when they brought that computer in, it's possible, kind of unlikely, but possible that they had wrote a code to save a file that only appears after another file is saved. So they save this response and then it waits until Edward saves a new file and then this new file pops in and is displayed. And that's the response. The issue with this is that yes, it's possible. It was
responding to questions.
But yeah, there was answers. So it would have to be, if that was the case, then Ken would have to be in on it with someone else telling them what the answers, or at least someone somewhere along the line fed the answers somehow. Like those magicians who are like, what number are you thinking of? Is it 13? And you're like, oh my gosh. And they...
You're saying that Ken was playing a mind game on the...
What I'm saying is that whoever was doing this to Ken used the power of suggestion to get him to ask specific questions that he was answering.
But he also did it to the supernatural people and the ufologists.
To everyone, yeah. This is Chris Angel. This was Chris Angel's first strike.
Edward Angel.
Edward Angel. So yeah, so that's a tough one. Another one that is my personal favorite. Have you heard of these stories? I should back up and say there were situations on multiple occasions where Ken and Debbie heard people walking above the kitchen. The kitchen was a single floor wing of the house, so that it was just roof. They heard people walking above the kitchen. So they would go outside, they'd check, there'd be no one up there on the roof.
Sure.
They come back in and there's footprints on the ceiling.
Yeah, classic
there's no footprints.
Stuff.
Yeah. So another theory is that, have you heard those stories of like people who have people living in their attic and they don't know about it?
Don't do this to me.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I have heard of that. I don't like it. So, it's like the same thing with like the people who live in hotel rooms.
Yeah,
sneak into the walls and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it freaks me out like a lot.
Well, that's the theory, that there was someone living in their attic, and when they would leave, this guy climbed down from the attic and messed with them. And because he lived in the attic, he was able to get away with it because he didn't know them. He heard them talking all the time, so he knew their names. but he didn't, and he could obviously read their messages and answer their messages. And being a British citizen, knew a decent bit about the past, but not enough to get things right. And so then went back and covered his tracks with his 2109 story, and then with this, I'm actually Thomas Howard.
I guess he can hear them talking too.
Yeah, and so he's able to come back and backtrack with all the messages and stuff like that. There was never proof. Nobody ever found someone in his attic. So he could still be there.
We're not sure that Nick wasn't doing this the whole time, though.
That's true. I mean, Nick was going to the pub with them. So for Nick to plant the messages would be tough, but Nick could be an inside job. Like, he could know a guy, and he could be...
But hey, we're leaving.
They're in the Applebee's, and he was like, I got to make a call. Let me go out to the phone booth. And he hops in the phone booth. Or there's a guy at Applebee's,
and when they walk in, he leaves.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of the ways we could pull this off, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we could get somebody. Either this is some weird interdimensional time travel thing that we don't understand that will be explained within our lifetime, because it's within the lifetimes of Ken and Debbie, and that was the 80s.
Yeah, they were a little older than us.
They were adults in the 80s. So we should find out pretty soon if this is legit. Most likely it's a hoax. I will say there are two things about this that are interesting to me. One, this has happened to me. I got some messages from this guy named LW last week.
Shut up. I'm done with you. Okay.
No, for real. When I was in middle school...
No, stop.
This is a true story. This is a 100% true story. When I was in middle school, our family computer in the living room, one morning...
Stop.
I'm not even kidding. This is a true story.
Okay.
I can't wait to tell you what my conclusion about this was.
Okay. So I have to go.
I know we're almost done.
No, I have to go like now.
Why?
I have a flight lesson.
When?
At 5:00.
Oh yeah, you got to get out of here, man.
That's what I'm saying. What did your computer say?
It's too much of a setup. We'll have to do this later.
No.
You got a long drive, Eddie. You better get out of here.
Okay. What did the computer say?
Oh, we woke up one morning and Microsoft Word was open on the family computer in the living room.
And then it just said, I know about the pillow pets. I'm going to tell everyone.
No, what it said was worse. It said kill Josh. And that was it. That was all it said. And nobody in our house knew where it came from. Nobody could explain it. My parents thought...
Shut up, you did it.
My parents thought I was playing a
You
joke on
did it,
everybody.
and you're doing this to show your dad later. And be like, look, I talked about it, and you've held this alive forever.
No, I genuinely...
My
my brain genuinely... I wasn't allowed to watch Billy and Mandy, and I watched it the night before, and I honestly believed that I let the devil into our house because I watched Billy and Mandy.
Billy and Mandy?
I was like, I did it. He's going to kill my brother.
Guys, I watched Courage the Cowardly Dog, and now my brother's going to die. Why have you never told me this thing has killed Josh?
I don't know. I honestly have thought about it until I read this.
You
it's like,
did
I've been there.
You did it.
I have no idea how it happened. I genuinely, no one knows how it happened.
What was the second reason you were interested in it?
Oh, that's a time. It's not interesting.
Okay. This did happen in my house too. You brought it up. When I was in middle school,
this orb walked out of my fireplace.
And it said to me, go to Tim Stone's house. It said, yeah. It said, would you rather...
Should we just fiddle it off?
Do you want to... I was watching Drake and Josh that day. And it said, kiss, marry, kill. Yes. I said kill Josh.
Who did you kiss and marry?
Fiddle Off. You're still here, which means you've either walked away from the video or you just kind of gave up and just let it play in the background. Either way, thanks for doing that. Thanks for making it to the end of the episode. Through the Fiddle Off, you've made it. So there are more episodes. You can click that right there, or you can watch other videos. Make sure you subscribe to this video and whatever other things YouTubers say.